Now I want to cut the longer, that is the hand at the back of it. So we have two different adjusters here. We have this type and we have this type. Whichever one you want to use is what you should go for. Now I'll be measuring, now this is the back. Don't forget to trim the back as well as you have trimmed the front one. You use the front one to trim the back. So the height of this back now is 13.5 inches. So I'll be measuring 13 inches. Okay, let's look for where. Okay, so we can use this part. Now I need to trim off this side. Now 13 inches. So this part I have this is the beginning. Now measuring it down, I have 16 inches all through. So I don't need the whole of 16. So I'll be cutting 14 inches instead of 16, 13.5, 14 inches. Now the wideness depends on you. Okay, this is why it is important to note before you start measurement. So I have to measure again. That's shifted. I've trimmed the upper part. So I have 14 inches down here to measure. Now the wideness, you can use 2 inches, you can use 3 inches, depend on what you want to use. Like the Ankara bag, I used as 2.7 inches, as you can see. So it's not a must I use that. So I'll be using 2.5 inches here. This mark here, this is the half. Okay, the same thing as the ruler, 2.5, 2.5, and 2.5. Now be cutting it out separately. What I'm going to do is to join the dots together first. After joining, then I'll fold this into 2. I'll fold into 2 to get the other side. There are times when you do this way, you might not get the actual result, so you have to press down to make sure it is equal. Then you use your pen. I would advise you get that shoemaker pen. Use it to rule it so that you won't cut out the wrong one. You make sure the line, you're pressing the line to be equal at this side before you trace. So I've gotten it, then I have to cut it out. So before I cut out, I will give out a little allowance for the sewing aspect. I won't just cut out like that. So like I said, the full length is 14 inches, so we have to get the other part as well. Now I have these two. Now fold these two together, or before you fold, if you fold the leather, is the type that if you fold it, it won't bend easily. We need a curve at this part, so you fold it into two this way. You might choose not to fold into two, as in just directly, you cut it directly. We need a curve here, so I'll be measuring it so that you won't. It's something I can cut straight, but let me put measurement because of some people. So I'm using 2.5 for the height here, 2.5. Then the part where it will be curved here, using 0.7 inches. Now what I need to do is just to curve it. So after curving that part, take your scissors and do your cutting. So you use your sewing machine to run this straight. So we're having this now. You can see the shape, the V shape. Now you cut out the same thing for the second one. You have to cut out two. You learn to work with the space where you have a short leather that can fit to it. You don't just cut. Okay, this is a bit higher. So let's flip to the other side and use this side. Sorry. So I've gotten a perfect place to put it. So you place something heavy on it. I'll be placing this bottle so that it won't move when I'm tracing. Including the V part, you trace everything out. Get your scissors and cut out. Now you notice that the V part of it, I didn't trim it off, I didn't cut it out. So I'm placing it this way. Before I can cut out, place them beside each other to see if there's going to be differences. Okay, we have this facing here, and we have this facing this part. Now we'll flip it to this side. Where is it facing? Normally it's supposed to face here, this. As you can see, if I have to flip it to the other side, it is wrong. If I'm to cut here now, if I had gotten this part, I might get it wrong. That is, if I cut it out with this without measuring it to see if it rhymes together. If I'm to cut it straight like that, it might be wrong. So you need to check first if this curved parts are facing each other. If they're not facing each other, then it is wrong. You have to recut another one. So this V cut has to face each other. Now we have this here, then which means that I'm free to cut this part out. So if we turn to the other side, we have this, as you can see. Now we'll cut a foam of just, now if you have a styrofoam, I don't have styrofoam again, I've exhausted the ones I have, so I would have used it. We have styrofoam that you can use. If you don't have a styrofoam, you can make use of a normal foam. You can either pad it or you use it just one like that. 1/4 inch size is okay. You can use 1/2 inch as well, but shouldn't be too high. Shouldn't be too high. This is a small, a 1/4 inch styrofoam. This was removed from one of the lunch bags that I made. So I won't be using this. But if you have styrofoam, if you want to use styrofoam, don't go for the thick one, go for the light one. So you cut out this same size, but we are no longer going to cut 2.5 for the styrofoam. You cut 2 inches because the 5 inch there is going, the 0.5 there is going to be for the sewing allowance. So 2.5, that is what you're going to fix inside. But if you're going to be using a foam, you cut out 2 inches of this same length. Just one here, and if you feel the foam is too light, too tiny, you can double it. So you need one for this and one for this. So I have a foam here now. I'm not going to be tracing, so I'll be cutting out. So I'll be measuring 2 inches. I need 2 of it. Now the full length is 14 inches. Place it on the foam to get that curved part. You need to cut it on the foam as well, so that by the time you want to insert it, it won't be difficult for you to do. So after that, now the first thing to do here now use your sewing machine to run it. You might prefer to cut it. Some cut this into to they split them into to then sew together, but for a faster job you don't need to cut out. So just use your sewing machine to run it from this upper part now down to this part, whichever way you want it. For an easier, I prefer this way because it's more easier for me. So I'll be doing this down to this part here without fixing this. I'm not going to fix this in yet on the upper side. So I'm going to sew it down this way first for the two.